Senator Hassan, you're recognized for your questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you and the ranking member for holding this hearing. My heart goes out, as the hearts of Granite Staters and Americans everywhere do, to the families and friends who lost loved ones during the heinous domestic terrorist attack in Buffalo. And I want to thank the witnesses for being here today to discuss that topic. I want to start with a question to you, Ms. Yates. Terrorist actors, including violent white supremacists, have used the internet to live stream their attacks. These videos are then shared online, glorifying the attacks and potentially inspiring copycat attacks. Can you discuss trends in how these videos are shared online, how creators may get around restrictions, and how these videos may inspire future attacks?
Yes, thank you, Senator Hassan. The live streaming of white supremacist terrorist attacks is certainly an increasing tactic among this movement. It is popular, I think, not only because it is a way for them to emphasize, their message, but also because it is a tool for them to gain notoriety for themselves. They're in this ecosystem. They're talking to each other. They're trying to, become sainted in this community as they see it. And so it's really a very focused, a self-focused a tactic here. And it has been facilitated by their ability to overcome the bans and the various elements of technology that are used to challenge them. I mentioned this previously in my last question, but I'll just speak in a little bit more detail. So right now, the primary mechanism for preventing the spread of video in this way is through the GIF-CT, where tech companies basically share identification information that identifies these specific images, and of course they're easily able to change that by modifying it barely. These especially are often Gen Z or younger individuals who the medium of video is their primary medium of interaction, and so this is entirely consistent with the youth subculture in which they operate. But in terms of improving our abilities to track that and to remove it and to counter that specific tactic, I think that we need to encourage tech companies to move beyond sharing of these ID numbers and hashes, but also to share the technology that they are developing independently. Because, of course, this is proprietary and they're in competition, but we know that they are investing enormous resources in the algorithms and the AI to drive content consumption. And so the more that they share with each other, the better they are able to coordinate so that these images are not able to cross platforms and spread.
So they have more work that they could do in order to prevent these workarounds and to prevent this kind of live streaming? Absolutely.
Okay. We'd like to see much more. Thank you.
All right. We would love to follow up with you on that. I want to get to another topic. Again, a question to you, Ms. Yates. White supremacist ideology is often linked to Nazis and neo-Nazis. In recent years, we've seen a related rise in anti-Semitic incidents. The attacks on the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh and Congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville, Texas, elevated national attention on the issue, and the Anti-Defamation League reported more than 2,700 anti-Semitic incidents in 2021, which is a 34% increase over the previous year. So how would you describe the role of anti-Semitism in modern domestic terrorism, and what do the latest trends in anti-Semitic violence suggest we can expect in the coming years?
Yeah, absolutely. So anti-Semitism is an absolutely critical component of white supremacism. There's really important research findings in this area that suggest that white supremacists, when they first sort of enter into this ecosystem, when they're first recruited, they may have sort of a lot of racism, they may have a lot of bigotry, misogyny, and those kinds of ideas, but they have to learn the specific anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that drive, I think, the most violent actions. And so it becomes this sort of final element of radicalization in some cases, where they see this conspiracy as posing this ultimate threat. So it has a really radicalizing dimension in that context.
Thank you, and thank you for your work. I want to turn to you, Mr. German. Last week, the Department of Homeland Security began collecting information across its component agencies as part of an urgent review of the department's efforts to counter targeted violence and domestic violent extremism. You've discussed the importance of counterterrorism data transparency at the Department of Justice and FBI. The Department of Homeland Security also needs to be transparent with Congress and the American people about which resources the department is dedicating to combating both international and domestic terrorism. In your opinion, what information should DHS provide to Congress and the American public to ensure that it is adequately allocating resources to the current terrorism threats?
Excuse me. Thank you for the question. There's a lot DHS can do. Obviously, the FBI has the investigative jurisdiction, so they have the most direct access to actual criminal investigations. But part of the problem that we've seen with the intelligence products put out by the Department of Homeland Security through INA is that they were overtly politicized on the one hand, but also spread disinformation. And we see that repeatedly where disinformation, often taking directly out of the right-wing social media, is put on an official law enforcement intelligence document and put out. So there needs to be much more transparency and oversight of the intelligence products, and particularly because it becomes an echo chamber. DHS sends it out, it goes to the fusion centers, they repackage it and send it out, and all of a sudden some piece of disinformation becomes a large thing that resources have to be devoted to. You know, I remember the anti-fascists setting fires during the wildfires in the West. You know, that kind of disinformation is harmful to security because it misdirects law enforcement resources.
Okay, thank you. One last quick question to Mr. Ward. Mr. Ward, parents, family members, and mentors play an important role in combating misinformation that their loved ones may be consuming online. What third-party tools are available for parents to learn how to talk to their children and loved ones about malicious conspiracy theories and extremist propaganda?
Thank you. Western State Center has developed a Confronting White Nationalism in Schools toolkit. It was released in 2019, and so far more than 60,000 educators have accessed this toolkit through trainings and through accessing it on the website. It is but one of many resources out there to help support educators and parents understanding how their children are being targeted by conspiracies. Of course, I think much stronger coordination with the Department of Education, with public schools at the local and state level will be quite helpful. We should understand that children's and educators' days are already hard, and the threat of violence and the infiltration and the targeting of students makes their days harder. There are sufficient resources out there. The challenge is providing access to educators and teachers and parents, and that's the role of the Department of Education right now, we believe.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize for going over.
No, thank you, Senator Hassan. Senator Rosen, you're recognized for your question.